This is what we doing while we do it, baby. We rollin'!
Covering MMA from all over the world, this is the premier stop for all your combat sports needs. MMAjunkie Radio, the only show broadcasting live from the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. The lights are on and the mics are hot. It's time to get your MMA fix, junkies. Take it away, Big John.
Gorgeous George and Coach, are you ready? Junkie Nation, are you ready? Well, let's get it on.
From the fight capital of the world, inside the beautiful Mandalay Bay Race and Sportsbook, you are listening to the MMAjunkie Radio Show, the only show that matters. I'm your host, Gorgeous George. With me, as always, Dan Tom, our fight analyst. That's right, Goes isn't here. Chris Russo. Mike Russo is going to be back. He's producing the show. We've had like so many producers, and of course I get thrown off by Mad Dog. We'll call him Russo just so there's no confusion. He's going to be producing back in New York, and of course we have father, author, gym owner, brand creator, former UFC light heavyweight and heavyweight champion, UFC Hall of Famer, current PFL/ESPN broadcaster. Too many titles to name. It's Randy Couture.
Hey.
What's up? How you doing?
Doing well.
Good to have you back here on the
Thanks.
MMAjunkie Radio Show.
Always good to be back with you
Did I miss
guys.
any titles? I see there's TV personality.
Don't even,
there we go.
Yeah.
You really have accomplished a lot and served our country as well, Army veteran. But, yeah, I was going to say it's hard to pin you down sometimes because you're always traveling,
yes.
But it's a good thing. You're staying busy. And
busy as ever. Honestly, since retiring from fighting going on 8 years ago, I don't think I've ever been this busy. It's been crazy, but that's a good thing. So,
how many of your, appearances or commitments are MMA related versus non-MMA related?
Well, obviously, last year with PFL 1, the first season of PFL 1, there were 11 shows, and I was at all 11 of those shows commentating. I did a couple of appearances or things for Bellator as well during that time period. My son fought for them last year, and I've done some brand ambassador stuff for them over the years as well. Other than that, I've a few Tough Enoughs. I really enjoy the Tough Enough. They do such a great job for an amateur organization of matching up those young fighters in the right fights. Obviously, my son and many Extreme Couture fighters have come through that program. Tough Enough, Ronda Rousey, there's a whole bunch. So any support we can give to Tough Enough, we try to get involved in. Obviously, we do Operation Knockout, where all the proceeds from that show with Tough Enough go to the Extreme Couture GI Foundation. So, try to stay as entrenched and connected to MMA as I can, but usually through Extreme Couture MMA.
Yeah, because I remember, and hopefully I'm not out of line for saying this, when we went to Virginia, you had to fly back to San Diego, and I think you were just going to speak to executives. So that wasn't like MMA related. Yeah. You were just kind of like a motivational speaker or whatever.
That's correct.
I'm sure maybe some of it comes from success, movies, and being a world champion and all that. But do you get a lot of those outside?
I do. I'm getting more and more of that stuff. People want to know what obstacles you faced and how you overcame those obstacles, then go on and achieve goals and things like that. We all have wounds, we all have things we carry around, things that have happened to us in our lives that we're all trying to overcome and shape our view of the world. And so kind of having people that have had some success in some realms tell how they overcame those obstacles and managed to succeed has been something that's been powerful for some people. Right on.
All right. Well, while you've been doing a lot of the traveling and running the gym and, like I said, being father, gym owner, everything. Of course, PFL on ESPN. Huge news for PFL. NBC Sports Network was huge for you guys. Great platform. But with all due respect, ESPN is the sports leader. Nice move for the PFL, huh?
Very big move for them. Absolutely. As much as NBCSN was a cool place to be, and it's a little bit different demographic. It doesn't line up as well with the MMA crowd as well as ESPN does. So I think a huge vehicle for the PFL to continue to gain traction in the MMA world as one of the new promotions on the market and in the marketplace for fighters. Certainly giving away $1 million to 6 individuals on that final night is a huge thing and got a lot of people's attention.
How long did it take you to make $1 million when you started off? What was it, UFC 13 or something like that?
Gosh, I think it took at least a couple of three years.
And these guys got it done in 6 months.
Yeah, 3 years or more maybe. I'd have to go and break it down. But it was quite a while before it accrued and it had enough fights to make that kind of money.
And PFL, anybody that had doubts, they're back for a season 2, another million, 6 weight classes. They're introducing women's lightweight, by the way. They're doing away with middleweight. And same format, regular season. And by the way, they already have 3 fight card set. We'll go over them real quick. 3 fight card sets starting in May, regular season, and then they get to the playoff format. They're still bringing back 2 fights in one night.
Yeah, quarterfinals and semifinals in the same night. Obviously, when I started MMA, tournament format was a big thing, and that's how it was. But nobody's really done that since then. To my knowledge, I know they tried to bring back an 8-man tournament in Oklahoma for a little while with a smaller organization, and I don't think it went very well, honestly, or it didn't thrive.
Who won that? Do you remember?
I think he won his way back into the UFC. Jucal, Juan Carnero, I believe.
That's right. Great memory, Dan.
Yeah.
I do remember that one.
It was a big ask. I think even turning those guys around in the regular season every 6 weeks, they had to make weight and fight again. If you had any nagging injuries or anything like that, that was going to be a problem. One of the reasons why they eliminated the elbows in the regular format, there's no elbows anywhere in the PFL, which they were just trying to eliminate cuts and make it easier for those guys to turn around 6 weeks later and score more points to get into that postseason format, postseason play.
Did any young guys from season 1 who maybe didn't know your full resume say anything like, "Oh man, twice in one night? Come on, who? You know, like, what the hell? Who do you guys think we are? You know, you didn't have to play that card. Like, well, you know, been there, done
the way
that.
It used to, back in the day, we used to walk uphill both ways to the arena
in snow, 5 miles each way.
No, I don't think anybody. I never really heard anybody chirp about that, and it was interesting to see how each guy kind of played that out, what their approach was. Oh, I want at least 45 minutes off before I have to go back out there again. Other guys were like, man, I hope this comes up sooner. I don't want to cool down. I'm ready. I'm warm now. Let's go fight right now. So each guy kind of had their own perspective on that adversity and facing that adversity. And I was really, really impressed with all of them, each and every one of those fighters, both in the regular season, turning around every 6 weeks, and in the quarters and semis, stepping up and fighting twice that night. Total of 5 rounds if it went the distance, but still, you got to get ready for a whole new opponent, solve a whole new set of problems in that second fight, and you don't know who's going to advance. So that makes it pretty interesting.
I like what he said there by the approach of the fighters, because I know the rule set was a big thing, and you could pick apart pros and cons for days, but what I found most interesting was whether we're talking about the judging by putting the weight on the first round or so, or the turnarounds of 2 fights in one night. What you said, the fighters' approach, because some guys, they were selling out hard on that first match or that first round, and if it didn't go their way, it got real interesting. We saw a lot of stories play out.
Yeah, I thought it added a whole nother layer to the already interesting onion that is MMA, and I was just very impressed with these fighters and how they dealt with that adversity and really stepped up and showed what we're made of.
Maybe one of my favorite nights of MMA may have been the Long Beach show that I went to. Sean O'Connell, what he had to go through. I'm telling you, his back was to the wall twice. In the first fight, he was down, and that was a 2-round fight with more weight going on the first round. So I think we all knew. It wasn't like one of those, well, who'd you give it to? We all knew that Sean had to come back and win the second one, and he did. He came back and got a 10-8 was what put him over. Then he goes in the back, and he comes back, and if I'm not mistaken, it was Smilinio Rama he had to fight. And in that fight, even though he won, he was tasting some leather too. Yeah. So he could have easily went out. But he had a large crowd, behind him cheering, pushing him. That guy dug deep. He'll be able to do anything he wants in life just because he was able to test himself mentally and physically that night. Yeah,
he showed a ton of heart and exactly what a mixed martial artist is made of that night. He did that a couple times in the regular season too. Jeez. He was back against the wall, took some shots.
That's right.
And I was like, oh my gosh! And
he took a loss actually right before the playoffs.
He just has that unique ability to stay in the pocket, stay right where he wants to be, and get it done.
Surviving Vinny too. That's no easy task. Vinny got him down.
Yeah, no. I think everybody in the arena at that point thought that fight was over at that point. And I mean, he trains with Jeremy Horn. Come on, there isn't a better guy out there technically and tactically than Jeremy Horn. And that was his mentor from day one, his coach from day one in this sport. So he was in good hands.
You guys kick off on Thursday, May 9th, and right at the top, I love the PFL website, by the way, pflmma.com if you want to follow along. It's very detailed in gives you all the start times with the time zones. It's going to be on ESPN2, for example. They're very specific, so you have no questions on fight night of where you need to go. Lewis Taylor was another great story.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And I came back here, and I had to confess to MMAjunkie, tears came down. I didn't cry. It was just like a couple – my eyes got moist, a couple tears came down.
There's a breeze in there.
When he won and one little girl was going nuts and the other one was crying, I was like, oh, my God. Fucking PFL's really changing lives here. You know what I mean? Like, that was pretty special. And aside from that, it was a vicious KO, too.
It absolutely was.
He's on that card, yeah.
Yeah, he's a great kid. He's been fun to watch. He's explosive. Got a great mindset. Stays right there, and I've enjoyed watching and get to know him all in the first season. So happy to see him back in the second.
Yeah, we were lucky enough to have him on this show during his rise.
Yeah.
And when I looked at his record, I'm like, man, this guy's really been around a while. He's fought in every organization. He just maybe lost one of those key fights, got overlooked a lot because of his age, but he was never not competitive, even with guys like Dave Branch, and showed it. So that was one of my favorite stories next to Sean
Big
O'Connor.
time. Great story, man. It was really, really a great story. They brought him back. He had to drop a division, but hey, then he can chase history, winning 2 divisions for the PFL.
Yep.
And don't forget, it's another cool million. That right there is a nice bullseye.
That is a motivator for sure.
Co-main event is going to feature Kayla Harrison, who by all means is living up to all the hype. Gold medalist 2 times for the United States. So a very familiar story, of course, similar to Ronda Rousey and the rise that she has. She's going to be fighting on this fight card. I guess we can all admit the prohibitive favorite to probably take it all down. But as noted, I don't think anybody said, I got Lewis Taylor on day 1 of season 1. You know what I mean? Anything can happen. You got to stay healthy, and you got to be able to, you're going to have to pass all these different tests. And like we explained, the first playoff night is 2 times in 1 night. So even though this is just season 1, so far she has looked good. Talk a little bit about Kayla Harrison. You've gotten to know her.
I got to know her a little
and
bit.
Also broadcasting.
Yeah, absolutely. The year before, in kind of their rebranding phase, they brought in a bunch of us to test us out as commentators and see kind of what chemistry happened. And Kayla was brought in at that time to commentate as well. And that was my first introduction to her. So getting to kind of know her outside of stepping up in that cage, how serious she took this, the diligence and the dedication that and I'm asking her, who are you training with? What are you doing? Are you wrestling with anybody? Are you doing grappling with anybody? Who's working on your striking? Because that's going to be the biggest area for you to catch up. Never really had anybody punch you in the face. And I mean, it was a list of who's who, people in the sport at the top level. Obviously don't want to pick her brain as well and learn from her, because she's phenomenal at what she does as a 2-time gold medalist in judo, which we've never had before. And she'd be the first one to say, yeah, Rhonda, that's cute, a bronze medal. But, gold medal twice in 2 Olympics is pretty amazing. And I've just been very, very impressed with the work that she's put in. I saw the pressure, how much was on her back that very first time she walked up in that cage to fight, and I was genuinely concerned how she was going to handle that. She came through with flying colors, and I just see her settling into who she is as a mixed martial artist, continuing to add tools to the tool belt. And each one of these gals in this season are going to challenge her. Obviously, most notably Sarah Kaufman, who's an amazing competitor.
Good hands.
And, great, well-rounded fighter, and she's going to be a handful for Kayla, and I'm excited to see how she deals with that.
I'm excited about that matchup too, but just one more thing on Kayla. What impresses me the most, and I want to hear from you because, in my opinion, you're the master of mental warfare, but her mind seems just like a vault. I don't know her personally, but hearing interviews, I like what I hear. And obviously, you have a good sense for skill being a fighter, but obviously you also have that good sense of mental acuity. Do you still sense that off of fighters, the mental strength as well?
Yeah,
Randy?
absolutely. And she's definitely very, very mentally strong. She's developed years and years through combative sports and tournament format, mental skills that put her in that right frame of mind to walk out there to deal with that adversity. And again, seeing her under that kind of pressure early on, and how that was, I could tell it was affecting her, but she kind of took it all in stride, did the things she needed to do to stay focused and go out and do her job, and she's just getting more and more refined and better at that all the time.
Scary.
And so I think she has all the tools she needs, and certainly the mindset she needs.
Randy, one other fight that I want to talk about from the first card here coming up, May 9th. In Uniondale, New York. Looks like all 3 of them are in Uniondale, New York. You might as well get an Airbnb for the month. But how about Ray Cooper, the third?
Amazing.
Came out of nowhere and went out there and just, I mean, he was finishing everybody in the first round. Of course, we all had. How dumb is it though? We're concerned, like, what's it gonna be like? Is this all happening? Is it too easy? You know? And then of course in the finals he wound up getting the runner-up, which was still $200K.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that's going to be a driving force for him. But I mean, aside from that, he was still probably the most impressive regular season fighter.
He was absolutely, I think, the Cinderella story from the first season of the PFL. You know, matching up with Shields, who's, if I was a betting man, would have lost the farm several times betting against Shields, against Henderson, against Campman, against so many of these guys that I was sure were going to be able to stop his grappling and shut him down and punch him. And everybody who's tried that has kind of failed miserably and ended up in his world on the ground with him on their back.
Even Woodley lost.
Yeah, and I mean, there was just a ton of guys. And so, you know, you look at that matchup and maybe a little retribution for Ray Cooper because he beat his father 14 years ago. You know, I think Ray was 9 at the time and actually in his dad's corner at that fight. It was a really cool story and not just one of those things you don't see very often. And the ferocity that kid walked into that cage with every time I saw him in that first season was remarkable. It was amazing. Even in that finale match, the ferocity he brings to that cage, you better strap
He's going to be hungry in season 2.
Absolutely. That's just the way he is, the way he fights. And the fact that they're doing all of that literally in their garage in Hawaii with his father and his brothers, it's an amazing kind of homegrown natural story that just happened through season 1.
Right. All right, so now on the 23rd, back in Uniondale, still on ESPN2, ESPN Plus, depending on whether you're watching. They don't really like to call it prelims or main card per se, because all the fights matter the same amount of points. And if you go back to season 1, you'll see that not all the top seeds went all the way. But
I'll argue real quick that it felt that way too as a viewer. You're just like, oh, I get this fight next, sweet. It just rolled really nice with production.
Every single fight is important. Every single fight for those guys, whether they're on the cards leading into the main card on ESPN or not, they all count. They got to score those points in order to accrue enough to get into the playoffs, and
stakes.
That makes them all count. There's no such thing as an undercard.
Yeah. I wanted you to talk about somebody that joined your gym about 2-3 years ago. Lance Palmer, though, he looks like George Hamilton there with that tan. But that guy's a stud too, man. I watch him when they're coming in for practice, and you can just tell he's all business. He goes in there, says hello, nice guy, but then once the gear's on and he's taped up, he puts in some work. And watching him and Kevin Lee, for example, them do rounds, they go at it really hard. You know, just a great addition to the gym overall.
Absolutely. Iron sharpens iron. You're only as good as those guys you're working out with. You mentioned Kevin Lee. I mean, how much did Kevin Lee help Lance? How much did Lance help Kevin Lee? I mean, we make each other better that way.
You can't even take a half second off when you're grappling with either one of those guys. Otherwise, boom, that's the move that gets you.
And that's one of the things I love about Lance's style. He knows exactly where he's strong, where he wants to be, and he won't let anybody talk him into straying away from that. He doesn't care whether you want to boo him or whatever you want to do. He's going to do what he knows he needs to do to win.
Andre Harrison, he got eliminated by Lance Palmer.
Yeah.
And he's another one of those guys that I think we all felt like that's the guy that's going to take down featherweight, and he didn't. Now he's 20-1, still an impressive record, but you know he's gunning. You know, like you know he had to take it to another level this offseason to prepare for season 2.
It's probably to his benefit to get that off his record. I can't imagine the pressure being, 19-0, and now 20-1. Whatever the case may be, just getting that monkey off your back where everybody wants to talk about the fact that you're undefeated. And I think that'll be a relief to him that he doesn't have to worry about that anymore. He can just go out, focus on performance, do what he needs to do to win.
Yeah. You wrestled internationally, and I bring that up because a guy like Rashid Magomedov, but the invasion of a lot of Russian fighters, a lot of them from Dagestan, a lot of them from different parts of Russia. What is it? Is it wrestling, sambo, judo? What is it that they're so driven to be? They're tough hombres, and I guess what I think. Another thing is they don't have many distractions other than this is my career, and I'm not trying to be any other type of a superstar. I'm just trying to be a world champion.
Yeah, I think almost more than their career. It's kind of their ticket out of the circumstance or the situation that they're in. And I know, when the wall was still up and they were a communist country, that was their chance to kind of get out, see the world, trade for Levi's, trade, things that just weren't allowed in their countries. So they were very motivated to go on those trips to other countries and wrestle the rest of the world. And that was 100% reliant on how they performed, whether they won medals, how they did. So, that was a big motivator for a lot of those guys. But they identified those kids really, really young, 3, 4, 5 years old, right? And they're groomed to be in those particular sports. It's the Soviet system, and there are remnants of that still in place. A lot of those old coaches and trainers are still training athletes and still doing those same things, and it's successful. There's no way to argue that.
That's a great point. He brings that up. The competition within the competition, so to speak. Because I heard Yoel Romero speaking a similar thing with the Cuban wrestling program. How the guys in there, you don't even want to show you're injured to your teammates because they're going to attack you to get your spot on the team, and those spots mean a lot different lifestyles you're living in those kind of countries.
Yeah, absolutely true.
Tell me, when they say there's levels to this game, kid, whether it's college to pro or whatever, can you talk about when you wrestled at Oklahoma State, which is a very respected D1 wrestling program, but then when you had to wrestle international, the difference of going up against Cubans, Iranians, Turkish fighters, wrestlers, Bulgarian, Russians, compare those differences. And we're not taking anything away from D1 because obviously it's very, very competitive, but
the thing about D1 is technically that's our American style of wrestling. Each culture kind of has their own indigenous style. There's a thing in the German countries called Schwingen. There's Turkish oil wrestling, Japanese is sumo, and there's a indigenous wrestling in just about every culture around the world. Collegiate style wrestling is ours. We're the only country in the world that wrestles that. There are a lot of similarities between collegiate wrestling and freestyle. So you see a lot of our NCAA champions then transfer over and win medals and do very, very well in freestyle. Doesn't translate so much to Greco, which is obviously the style that I focused on, the other Olympic style, which is much more upright. A lot more throws. It's like judo without the gi. You can't use your legs offensively or defensively to prevent or score points. It's a little bit different thing. Of the styles, I think collegiate style, NCAA wrestling, and Greco are the two styles that apply most to fighting and fighting situations, those transitions. It's interesting. I learned Greco and freestyle in the Army before I went to college. I was a one-time state champion from Washington. I think it was in that 6 years I spent wearing the uniform and wrestling, representing the Army, wrestling the Marines, the Air Force, the Navy, the other services, and then ultimately getting a chance as I cracked into the national team to go abroad and wrestle abroad. I was bewildered. I had never seen – I saw 9-year-olds in Sweden in a club on the mats doing technique that I had no idea how they did it when I was 21.
Damn.
Wrestling that weekend against their Swedish national team. And got my ass handed to me, literally. It was a growing and learning experience, and I realized how far we were, especially in Greco, behind.
Right. You could pull it up on YouTube either to see what they were doing, right?
So, I think our NCAA wrestlers and a lot of our Olympic wrestlers, this has become their professional outlet. MMA has become the place where they can go now and be a professional athlete in our society, and that's a huge thing, in my opinion.
Yeah. What I noticed when I went to the did you go in 2015 I think it was at the Orleans when the World Championships were here?
Yeah.
What I noticed was a lot of our guys were a couple years removed from college, but it was like they hadn't gotten their man strength yet, And there's 32-year-old Russians or Cubans, or I remember Mongolia had a lot of great wrestlers as well.
Yep.
And because over there they don't graduate to a professional sport per se, they just keep coming back. So again, the competition to even get that spot is cutthroat. But you're coming back, and now you're coming back as 20-year-old, now a 24-year-old, now a 28-year-old, now a 32-year-old. You still got gas left in the tank, but you got more mental experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Average age for combative sports at the Olympic level is 29 years old.
Wow.
So I think it's a sport of experience. It's a rarity to see a kid in his teens or early 20s achieving and kind of winning medals and winning at that level, but it does happen. And it's happening more and more, I think. But they use a different system. None of their athletic programs are in the scholastic programs. They're not in schools.
Yeah.
It's all completely on a club system. So your parents, either you were identified as somebody they wanted and got invited to go live in that club and train and be basically brought up in that club, or your parents had the wherewithal to say, oh yeah, we're going to take you to the gymnastics club or the wrestling club, and you grew up in it that way. But it's a totally different system than we're used to. We know by the time we're high school kids probably what direction we're headed. If we're going to college, what sports we're kind of honed in on and going to play. But they determine that at a much earlier age.
All right, we gotta let's take this quick break, and when we come back, Dan, we'll lead off with you. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation Channel 156. That's right. We're no longer Fight 93. We're Channel 156. We got Randy Couture here in studio with us. We'll talk a little bit about the third card that's already been set. PFL is, I'm telling you, they're very, very organized. They got their card set. We'll talk about June 6th, Thursday, on ESPN2 and ESPN Plus, and the fighters are on that card as well. So stick around. Do not touch that dial.
Just signal me for a daily debate if you know it's coming, George.
Okay.
And I'll be ready.
Large fellow on the shoulder and tell him it's time for more MMA Junkie Radio with Gorgeous George and goes, thank you.
SiriusXM's The Beatles channel has your chance to win a weekend trip for two to Las Vegas. Our winners will see Paul McCartney's Freshen Up Tour June 28th at the T-Mobile Arena. And the very next night, they'll enjoy a VIP experience at The Beatles Love by Cirque du Soleil at the Mirage Hotel and Casino. For official rules and to enter, go to SiriusXM.com/Beatles Las Vegas before April 22nd. No additional purchase is necessary. We're joined here with Randy Couture, former UFC 2-division champion. That's right, he was a heavyweight champ. He was a light heavyweight champion. He was also an old-school one-night tournament champion. That, along, of course, with a decorated wrestling career, owner of the world-famous Extreme Couture gym here in town, and broadcasting now for the Professional Fighters League, who, as we noted earlier, they're moving to ESPN, and they're getting ready for Season 2. We're a little bit over a month away, and we've gone over a little bit the first two cards. Now we're just going to glance over this third card here with Felipe Lenz coming back, one of the champions from Season 1, and they're not making it easy for him. They got Satoshi Ishii, a free agent signing, a gold medalist for Japan in judo. That's going to be a nice matchup to start things off.
Yeah,
huh?
well, yeah, no easy road there for Felipe, coming off winning the title in Season 1 and right into one of the top contenders probably in Season 2. So be interesting to see how he deals with that, what he chooses to use, because he's got great jiu-jitsu background, but he's also a long, rangy, very good striker too. So be interesting to see how he deals with the judoka.
Victor Nemkov is coming over from Bellator MMA, and I see Jordan Johnson coming over from the UFC. Jordan Johnson hasn't lost.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he was
just
they let the contract expire and he decided to see what else was out there for him. And then with Victor Nemkov, I last remember him beating Phil Davis, if I'm not mistaken. I think he may have had one other win, McGeary or somebody. So maybe those $1 million checks were
I'm telling you,
an attractive option, huh?
They got some folks' attention for sure, especially guys like that have been struggling and fighting in this sport for not great pay, let's be honest. And to see a chance to not only in the regular season fights and even if they lost in the finale, they're still getting probably paid better than they've been paid.
And they got paid along the way, too, pretty impressively,
That's what
right?
I'm saying.
Yeah.
They're getting paid like a regular professional athlete along the way through the regular season and into the postseason. And then, obviously, the runner-up still got paid pretty well.
Yeah.
So I think that got a lot of people's attention, and you're going to see more and more guys like that are top-notch competitors want to give it a shot.
I got to imagine they got to be just chomping at the bit because, when you're a dominant wrestler like that, we've seen it so many times. Fighters are smart, or the managers certainly are smart at least, and they probably won't face those guys unless they kind of have to. We've seen it kind of before. John Fitch had a real dominant run when he first made his first run, and so forth. So a guy like Jordan Johnson, if he was having trouble getting fights, I got to imagine those guys are salivating because now you're locked into a format where the politics are taken out. You can't run, and your style you can get back to. You can get to your style, unabashedly so.
It's one of the things I love about the format. It's absolutely a meritocracy. If you want to talk smack, talk all the smack you want, but it's not going to get you anywhere. You still got to walk up in that cage and score points to progress, to move on. And I love that. Boil it down to its simplicity, and let's just go do this.
You were gonna share something before the break. Was that it, or do you remember what it was?
Oh no, it was just a random wrestling thing.
Just want to make sure.
This is more interesting, to be honest. I love more PFL talk.
How about Vinny? Was the gym able to pick him up? That must have been disappointing because we heard that there was an injury. Not that he ever made an excuse. He went in there, battled. O'Connell was just a better man that night. But he had such a great regular season run, a la Ray Cooper, for example. Mm-hmm. Everything was happening so quick. Came up short in the finals, and now he's back. But have you noticed a different Vinny, or did it take him a while to shake that off?
I think it took a little while to really kind of get to the bottom of what was going on and what was bothering him. And I think he's still in some ways, as he bolts into training and trying to get himself back into shape for Season 2, still trying to figure that out. I don't want to go into what his issues are. That's for him to discuss or not discuss. But I definitely think that the way that went down will definitely affect him, and I think we'll see a better Vinny coming back. He understands better what's going on with his body and what the issues were, and I think we'll definitely see a better Vinny, which is kind of scary in and of itself going into season 2. But man, you do not want to play around with him on the ground at all. I mean, he showed that time and time again, and that's hats off to Sean O'Connell and Jeremy Horn for getting him out of that first round when he was literally in as deep a water and in as big a trouble as you could be in.
Yeah, exactly. I mentioned this during the commercial, but that Bozaget Ataev, I don't know why I'm a fan of his, but he's just entertaining. I love his style. He's very, very heavy-handed, and it's not like there's a flashy nickname or anything really flashy to him, but he's just kind of old school,
I remember that name like Bozaget. Do you need a nickname, really?
I guess not.
But he has that typical Russian demeanor that's very stoic. When he smiles, he's got a great smile, and he's a great personality. He's fun to talk to, but he's really fun to watch.
Okay, so
watch him
pretty good personality behind the scenes.
He just kind of has that very stoic. It's like, is he going to a barbecue? Is he going to a fight? Where's he going right now?
Right.
He's just very stoic and fun to watch him get out there and compete.
Well, all the first 3 shows are lined up, and they're on the website if you want to check them out. They're all in Uniondale, New York, so you're lucky if you're I believe that's Long Island. If you're out there in that area, the tri-state area, there's 3 different cards you can pick from. It all starts on May 9th, Thursday, May 9th. And remember, they're moving also to ESPN, so if you can't get there, it's ESPN Plus, ESPN2 that night. PFL2 comes back 2 weeks later. That's May 23rd. Same spot, Uniondale, New York. ESPN2, then ESPN Plus. And then lastly, PFL3. We've gone through all the cards here. That's on June 6th, so check it out. And Randy, just a couple of things here before you get going. We always like to help you promote anything you have going on with the military. Or either the GI Foundation or the poker runs.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And we just had such a great time at Fort Eustis in December. It was an amazing trip, and 3 days spent on the ground there at Fort Eustis with a bunch of our warriors and their different jobs, and all the stuff we got to do was a lot of fun. We've got our 11th annual motorcycle poker run coming up here on May 11th.
Okay.
We've been running the foundation, the Extreme Couture GI Foundation. That's xcgif.org. for 11 years now, and we're coming off the best year that we've had. We managed this last year through all our events to raise about $300,000.
Oh wow!
For families
across these past 10 years.
Yeah, so that's actually just what we raised this last year. So
really,
yeah, it was again the Freedom Defender Series.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought it was each of the poker runs that you've had.
No,
are you saying just in 2018?
Just in 2018, that year is kind of the best year we've had as far as all the different events, the different chapters, and raising the money that we've raised. So we're excited to be able to go out and help at least 25 families take the financial strain off of that transition when they've been wounded, coming off of combat, getting fitted, going through their surgeries and trying to get back into normal life. We write each of those families a $10,000 check, which is a good boost up and take some of that pressure off.
What is the number? Well, I don't know if there's a number 1 or number 2 or 3, but when a soldier does come back and their time is up, what is the biggest reality, the biggest bucket of cold water that hits you in terms of like, wow, I'm back in the real world now?
Well, I think it's a little more unique with these guys because they've all actually been wounded.
Okay.
Many of them amputees, getting fitted for prosthetics, learning to walk again with that prosthetic, and they have some really state-of-the-art stuff at Bethesda Walter Reed that to help them do that. But that's, I think, almost a whole different animal. Now, our average soldier that's in
you're right, because I was thinking more MVP.
MVP is the other program that I'm involved with, on the board with, and we've been running the chapter here at Extreme Couture for 2 years, which is free and open to any veteran. Friday at 5:30, come work out with us, come hang out with us, come get reconnected to the veteran community here in Las Vegas. We're in 5 cities now across the country, excited about MVP's growth, and obviously founded by Nate Boyer, who played for the Seahawks, was a former Green Beret. And Jay Glazer, who's obviously connected to MMA and the NFL. So that's been very exciting to see that program grow and see how powerful that's been, that peer-on-peer counseling, getting these guys together, rubbing elbows with other vets who speak a particular language, who've been through and trained a particular way there's 1% of the population that can say that.
Right.
I think that makes these guys special. Everybody wants to tell them they're broken and they're messed up. They're not. They're special guys, and you just have to change that narrative, and that's what that's all about. So
these chapters are L.A., Vegas, New York, Chicago, Atlanta, correct?
That's right.
You've grown into those other cities as well.
Yeah, we've grown into those other cities this last year. We're looking at Oklahoma right now. We've been talking to San Diego and Seattle. Again, trying to vet gyms that want to open their doors free to vets and retired ball players. That's what the MVP, merging vets and players. And then the ball players have been a little harder to break through to, honestly. But I think we're making some great headway there. We actually had Roger Goodall come to our pop-up.
The NFL commissioner?
Yeah, in New York City, which was a huge, huge deal.
Wow. What did he –
Dan Quinn of the Atlanta Falcons wrote a check himself to fund the Atlanta branch, our chapter in Atlanta. So these ball players recognize it, but breaking through to them, getting them to let down some of those walls.
That's a big breakthrough because the NFL, of course, I don't know if I'm saying this fairly, but from what I've read and seen, they just turned a blind eye to TBI. And then, of course, through lawsuits, now they've addressed it, and that's why kickoffs are a little bit different.
Yep.
That's why certain hits are a little bit different. So I'm glad that they recognized it, but that's how big of an announcement that is that you said that Roger Goodell was there, because for him to go there means that they're continuing their positivity
Absolutely.
Towards embracing
I think they recognize the power of this program, getting these guys together to share and work out. Sweating and training with somebody breaks down certain walls, and then when it comes time to spend, to huddle up and share the things that we're struggling with, share the things we're doing well, it becomes a little easier after that workout. So that's kind of how the program has been working. It's been a lot of fun to be involved with those guys. Noel Huerta is our contact here through UNLV and was a Marine. So Isaac Saldivar and the other one, those are two guys that run the program here in Vegas.
Okay, one last thing here. I know you got to get going to you got your trip coming up here, but this is a question that I thought you could definitely chime in on. It's our daily debate. We'd love to get your opinion.
Okay.
All right. Let's do the daily debate, guys.
Sounds good.
The brothers Garcia seemingly can't agree on anything.
Everybody knows it's duck season.
Rabbit season.
Duck season.
Rabbit season.
Whether it's food,
Less filling.
Tastes great.
Less filling.
Tastes great.
gambling,
Always bet on black.
I like red.
Black.
Red.
Black.
Red.
Black, dummy.
or even social media.
Instagram.
Snapchat.
Instagram.
Snapchat.
The same applies to the biggest stories in MMA. Time for MMAjunkie Radio's Daily Debate.
All right, today's hashtag daily debate question for @MMAjunkie Radio. That's social media talk. Who would you like to see Josh Barnett fight in his @Bellator MMA debut? If you haven't heard, Josh Barnett signed a contract with Bellator MMA on Monday. And here's a list of some heavyweights that he could mix it up with. And, of course, we have the option of other in case you guys want to go outside. Fedor Emelianenko, Frank Mir, Matt Mitrione, or other. You go first, Dan.
Man, part of me wants to lean toward Frank Mir. That fight was pretty interesting. I don't think it was too controversial in the sense that, Josh Barnett, for my money, next to Alistair Overeem, some of the best heavyweight clinch fighting, of course, next to the man next to us as well, which we'll get to his opinion. But you know what? I'd actually would go for a Matt Mitrione, perhaps a fresh matchup. I know Fedor Emelianenko is technically a fresh matchup, but maybe it's my old heebie-jibbies from the old days. I don't know if that matchup's got bad juju attached to it. And, some matchups like a Khabib Tony, feels like we just can't get these guys together. I don't know if Barnett Fedor is one of those.
I didn't think of that.
But you know what? I'll go with the fresh matchup. Give me Mitrione Barnett.
All right, how about you, Randy? Fedor, Mir, Mitrione, or other, if you can think of another one out there.
Gosh, any of the three of those guys would be interesting matchups with Josh. I think it would be fun to see Mir and Josh because of their submission skills. Both those guys have amazing submission skills. Leg lock guys, both of them, when they hit the ground, they're going to be looking for those knee bars and those sorts of things. I think that makes, and they both move really, really well for guys that size. So I think that would be a really interesting matchup.
I'm just going to go for the low-hanging fruit.
Okay.
I think I want to do Fedor. They were supposed to do it at Affliction 3. It didn't happen. But good point, man. Sometimes just two fighters can't get together. Look how long it took for Floyd and Manny to throw down.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, Khabib and Tony, is that ever going to happen? So who knows? But Fedor and Josh, I guess it's my soft side for Pride, the run that Pride had, and those guys were, beasts over there. And I there was always such a build-up to who would win between these two, and it just never happened. So that's my choice. This is how the breakdown went. 40% agreed with me, Fedor Emelianenko. 25% agreed with Randy, Frank Mir. 30% agreed with Dan, Matt Mitrione. 5% said other. So I guess we kind of nailed it there with the biggest choices there. Over 1,000 votes came in. Thanks to Junkie Nation, the readers of the site, listeners of the show for voting. All right, so we got to go to our last break, and with that, we bid adieu to Randy Couture. Thank you very much for stopping by, talking some PFL, doing the daily debate with us. We really appreciate your time. Good luck with have a fun weekend with the entertainment stuff that you got going on, and hopefully in a few months we can bring you back for another run at this.
My pleasure, man.
Awesome.
It was great to see you.
And follow him on Twitter at Randy_Couture. We'll be right back after this break. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation, channel 156.
Blah, blah, blah. Here are those two dummies, George and Goes.
All right, we're back. Pretty cool to have the general here, huh?
That was awesome.
Dan?
That was awesome, yeah.
Yeah,
of course.
He's always like a positive energy, you know what I mean, in the studio. He's got a lot going on, and he's always been great to Goes and I. I know you've had a different type of relationship, you being part of the amateur team and probably training with him. I mean, I know he's a bigger dude, but have you guys ever mixed it up? Have you ever had a chance to train with him? Or?
Thankfully, no. Especially from the stories I heard about Neil, and I'll probably just leave those here. But no, he did a hand.
But with Ryan, I'm sure there was a ton of that, right?
Ryan, yeah. Ryan gave me the worst liver shot of my life. Almost made me crap myself back when the Extreme Couture had the ring, the boxing ring. Remember those days? That was fun. Thanks, Ryan. No. I always had a good relationship. And then Randy, he was at we did a big in-house grappling tournament, like back in the day, Extreme Couture, I remember. And I also thought it was cool because even though it was like an in-house tournament, I didn't even expect to win that day, or at least my bracket. He ended up, he was there awarding the medals, and I think I was at Extreme Couture a couple of years at this point, but it's still a big deal because that's Randy Couture, man. I mean, kind of like you guys say, you guys been doing this forever, but there's certain guys that walk through that door that Junkie Radio door over the years that kind of even get you guys to go. That's an OG right there.
Exactly.
And he's one of those dudes, I feel.
Yeah, and I had to study up on him a little bit when we went to Eustis. So just knowing about his wrestling career, like literally he served first, and then universities were like, hold on a second, you haven't even used up your eligibility. So he did 6 years with the Army and then came back, and that's why his wrestling years were later in life. And that's why he debuted, I think, as a 33-year-old in the UFC, which now you don't debut as a 23-year-old, not a 33-year-old. So he was behind, the 8 ball the whole way. But that said, look at what he accomplished. And I know it was when the roster was maybe 120 deep, not 600 now. But still, still an amazing story.
I was just thinking of that real quick, was that, back in those days, you're right, guys were debuting at that age where, I was going back to rewatch some Max Holloway, Dustin Poirier footage, and they always bring up the Dan Lozon stat. He's the youngest guy to be signed by the UFC at 18 years old, and I got to imagine that's one of those records that won't be touched because those it's almost like we overcorrected and went from older guys or wherever we could get them back in the crazy days to we were scouting a little young there for a second. Now I think it's kind of balanced out. Now we're seeing guys use these other organizations properly, like the LFAs or even the UFC extension branches, like Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series. Kind of helps them not rush to that spot.
Yeah, correct. I love Dana White Contender Series.
That one's
it changed the game a little bit on the regional scene, and I think it might continue because now they're building that stadium. But that's a whole other conversation. Hey, listen, when we saw you on Monday, I think we were still reacting to Philly and maybe stuff that Connor did last week, which I will touch on because there was an update there on that assault charges that he had in Florida. Remember the nightclub stuff? Well, since then, I'm sure you've heard it. I'm sure you've seen it. I'll make it quick for you, but Habib and the listeners that may not have heard it, Habib was in Moscow. He was asked about Conor McGregor, and he compared him to a jealous wife who always says he's going to go away but comes back. Conor took to Twitter and said, "Your wife is a towel, mate," and showed a picture of Habib when he got married, and his wife, who's wearing traditional Muslim gear, apparel. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. The headwear is what I meant to say. Hijab, I think I have that right, is what she's wearing. And he says, your wife's a towel, mate. And so, of course, that was below the belt. And then Habib fires back and says, rapist, you are a rapist, you're a hypocrite, blah, blah, blah. And, of course, he posts a picture of Conor with a lady who's not Dee Devlin, Conor's significant other for many years. And, of course, that on top of the allegations that he has from December 2018, these guys were really, really going low. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The UFC intervened and told both camps to cool it. But what were your thoughts, bud?
Man, I mean, I feel like it kind of crossed the line back when I was getting off of a plane at JFK International Airport, and I was on my way to this thing called UFC 223.
The Dolly.
I actually think it went over the line way back then, guys. I don't know what to tell you, but yes, obviously, there has been a lot more that happened in this last week. And, for me, obviously, I think people that are familiar with me won't be too surprised to hear, okay, I'm not with that. It's over the line. It's not my style. I mean, we've talked about it on this show before. So there's nothing new to me there, but I just worry for the new level. I don't want to be an alarmist. I know people have put it out there, George, but I do think there is some credence to that when you talk about inciting violence, especially in this age, and how much more, you look at the statistics. I know, social media, we can just see the craziness more. That's true to a certain extent. But there are statistics out there fueled by the social media that help fuel these incidents higher, violent incidents that I don't even want to speak about, right? Because we just don't want people repeating them. And the inciting of violence is tough, especially, when it comes to unifying bodies, whether it's a religion like the Muslim nation, especially by somebody important like Khabib who says those things. But at the same time, it's like, well, you can't really blame Khabib because if you look at who says, but the thing is they're both wrong at the end of the day. I think that's the easiest way to kind of dissect it. It's really easy to dive in. Man, that's a deep shot. He made religion. Oh yeah, well that's the Liverpool mistress he just posted up. Like you lose track at scoreboard after a certain point, and I think the score tally gets too high. So I don't know, man. I really would like to see it clamp down. I know the UFC released a statement,
Right.
but I don't know how far they're going to tack down. I mean, especially when you go back and you look at it. I mean, remember back in the day, Miguel Torres, a guy you guys used to have on the show so many times.
The white van?
The East Chicago waterfall, right? He was, I mean, it was, you guys would have him on the show because he would say funny stuff. And when you try to say funny stuff, you're going to miss, right? You're going to miss. We've all done that. We've
You try and raise the bar a little bit.
We've all done
straddle that
man.
line of being edgy, yeah.
And we saw what, with the code of conduct and how they were kind of coming at people before. And I wasn't for that. I was like, oh, man, I don't especially, Miguel Torres. But now I'm almost finding myself, I don't know about you, George, I'm finding myself feeling like a hypocrite because now 2019 Dan versus 2009 Dan is like, well, maybe we could use a little bit of intervention here from outside bodies. I don't know.
The UFC did tell them to cool it, but what I'd like to know is how stern were they? Like, hey, guys, just cool it.
Yes.
Where you guys are bringing a lot of heat on us. Or if it was a real stern talking to, like, listen, we have a code of conduct. We expect you to act this way. Knock it off. Like, I'd like to know what that was like. It was great for them to put out a statement, which means to the most of the world, hey, we give a fuck about how our athletes conduct themselves. But behind the scenes, I really would like to know just how thorough they were.
Me too.
We will find out at some point how they were. But listen, regarding McGregor, before all this went down, he had that altercation, the alleged altercation, even though there's video everywhere. We have to say that. Alleged altercation with a fan outside the Miami Beach nightclub. What was it, Live or some shit? And he did get one of the felony charges lowered and the other one converted to a misdemeanor. So it reduces his potential maximum sentence to 6 years. Police were originally looking at charges that would have carried a maximum of 20 years. And, of course, we know none of this is going to happen. But still, I guess he's in less trouble out there in Miami. Is just another way of putting it. All right, folks. It's the top of the hour break. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation Channel 156. That's right. We're 156 now. We'll be gone for 60 seconds, and then we'll be right back. We'll continue on here with the MMA Junkie Radio Show. We still got Tatiana Suarez and Chris Lytle headed your way. Don't touch that dial.
Injuries forced them to retire undefeated from MMA with a record of 0-0-0. They are Gorgeous George and Goes. And this is MMA Junkie Radio.
How about a shout out to our producers, man? Listen, Josh has taken over where Danny was. He's done a phenomenal job. Last week we were with Gabby all week. Josh, of course, came back but fell ill. Andre subbed in a couple days. And you've heard all of these guys and gals on the different shows that we have across the channel. Busted Open, MMA Tonight, At the Fights, Us. Who did I leave out? At the Fights. Oh, that the Luke Thomas Show. This is the last one. Yeah. So the last one's Luke Thomas Show, and this is Mike Russo, also known as Cobb, the King of Banter. He's producing today, so shout out to him. Russo, long day, huh?
A little bit. It's going to be a long one for me, but it's well worth it to work with you guys again.
Awesome, man. Well, we appreciate you guys having each other's back like that. We didn't have to do any cancellation. Sometimes I feel like the producers, man, I'm telling you, they get down, dude. The producers really, really get down. And sometimes I don't know if they always get the love, but they're going to get the love from me.
Yep.
I told, Russo sent me an email, us, Dan, both you and I, hey, what's going on? What you got going on? And, of course, I've been having this cat and mouse game with Masvidal. It wasn't anything I could hang my hat on and say, we got this. I knew we had Randy, and we'd have some fun for the first 45 minutes. And I had a feeling Chris Lytle or somebody was going to come through from Bare-Knuckle. But I wanted one more guest. And I've noticed Tatiana Suarez is really active on Twitter. We've never had her on. I think she's a beast. I think she's a future champion. I told Russo, I go, it'd be nice to have Tatiana. I didn't even say Suarez. He emailed me back and says, she's in, 6:30, locked. And I was like, damn. Like, that was pretty damn quick. I mean, you would almost.
What I do, what can I tell you?
You would almost think like they were driving into work together, and he just asked her, hey, you want to be on Junkie? She said, yeah. That's how quick it was. So, again, shout out to the producers on the channel. They hustle and they do so much stuff that you all don't know about behind the scenes. The imaging, the replays. Thank you, Z. The imaging, the replays, the separate audios. I mean, we get it all very, very fast, and I want to give them some love. So it's always great to work with professionals like them. All right, so let's talk about a little bit of the latest news here in mixed martial arts. I'm kind of excited about this one. Some of you might go, yawn, next. But let me explain. The title is Almost There, Why the Door is Open for MMA Legalization in France. This is one of the stories on MMAjunkie. And, of course, you all know Francis Ngannou's from France. Carl Amasu, who's fought for Bellator, he's from France. You know, we've had a few French fighters out there, Czech Congo, UFC, Bellator, over the years. But France is one of the countries where MMA is not legal. It's not sanctioned there. It has had some resistance. And if you think about it, when you watch the Winter Olympics or Summer Olympics or just pick a sport, rugby, whatever, judo, there's always French athletes competing for some of the bigger titles. That's because there's a lot of great athletes in France. So I know that this will be one of those countries where once it's legalized and it's televised and the UFC or Bellator or all of them come in there and do what they normally do, make that splash, I'm telling you, just like Nigeria, just like New Zealand, just like Mexico. Trust me, man, that country's going to produce some talent. I'm excited about it. So it looks like we're getting close here. According to this story, Roxana Marciano, something like that, the French Minister of Sport plans to open the door for legalization so events can actually be held in the country. That's from a recent interview that she's done, and looks like now there is support for France, MMA in France.
Did you make it through France to your European soccer travels there, George?
No, I've only been to Holland, Germany, England, Scotland, but even the Czech Republic.
Wow, okay.
But I've never been to France, but it's on the list.
All right, it was a surprisingly good one.
You liked it?
I enjoyed it. I was most nervous there probably because I was just an American, and as far as like anti-American attitudes. But this was like 2009, so Obama just got voted in, and it was funny. First time I get in a cab, and it's like, guys, this guy was just like that Borat dude, kind of like, "Hey, you American?" And I'm kind of like sheepish, and I'm in the back seat by this time. I'm like, yeah. He's like, "Oh, Obama, good." I'm like, "Okay, cool. Maybe we're not so hated right now."
Wow. Okay. How long were you there?
You
were backpacking?
This one was. I actually stopped early because I took an overnight. Yeah, I took an overnight train from Spain into France, and it was like a 6-hour layover, 8-hour layover. And I'm like, "What am I gonna do 8 hours?" And I was planning on coming back through Paris, which I did, but I was like, "Let me at least like knock out like Eiffel Tower or something like while I'm here, right? One less thing to do when I come back." And that's when I got in the cab with the goofy dude. He started blasting some still Dre. Wait, he had like subs in his cab. I'm like, this is really weird. Felt like some ass backwards version of Training Day I fell into. But yeah, it was a fun time in Paris.
Nice. Well, I need to get to France, Italy, and Spain
on the list,
and then I'll be happy. And then of course there's still more countries other than that, but I think those are like the big three in my mind.
Good eating in those three.
Yeah.
Good eating. Oh,
I've heard some great things about Greece, and then of course I'd love to get up to Scandinavia, but old Gigi just doesn't rake it in, you know, enough to be doing these kind of trips all the time. So I just got to pick my spots. How about you, Cobb? Have you done a lot of traveling in Europe?
I literally just got my passport a month ago. It's the first one I've ever had in my life. So no, I have been to Canada, and that's about it.
Okay. All right. Well, I've been to Canada once. It was just for one night. It was to Windsor. I went under the tunnel in Detroit, but I'd like to see a little bit more of it. I'd like to see Toronto and Montreal at least, and probably Vancouver, but I guess now that I think about it, I need to step it up a little bit. For being 49 years old, I should have a little bit more stamps on the passport and have more stories to tell.
It's those Brazil trips that got you.
Yeah, it was the South America I'm well acquainted with. But yeah, I need to do a little bit more traveling. But anyway, going back to this, France is looking good, and I'm telling you, April 5th, remember this, Friday, April 5th, 2019. You remember, man, George was right. when it's April 5th, like 2022, and there's a couple French athletes just making some noise, you guys are going to go, George was right, man. That country really, really is producing a lot of great athletes.
There's a lot of Czech. I said a lot of like Czech Congos there, so to speak. Like a lot of like athletes that you wouldn't expect, especially if you pay attention to the region or the other sports. So good point there.
Yeah, look at New Zealand. They got Alex Volkanovski, and excuse me, I guess I'm going to double dip here. Okay. We have Volkanovski and Israel Adesanya. So they train out of New Zealand, at a city boxing in New Zealand. That's a gym that's. They also got that Kai Kara France guy.
Yep, Kai Kara France.
There was somebody else that got a nice win recently.
Shane Young.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that gym's got a little bit of buzz. Fortis MMA's got a little bit of buzz. Factory X, it's not just the traditionals. Although the traditionals still win. Extreme, Couture, Jackson Wink, ATT, Farasa Hobbies Gym. That's the TriStar Gym.
Yep.
You're always going to have them, but there's always a lot of new camps that are starting to flourish.
I love it.
What I said about double dipping is earlier I had said, hey, Nigeria, they're coming strong as well. We have Sodiq Youssef. We have Kamaru Usman, world champion. And then, of course, Israel Adesanya, who originally is from Nigeria, and now he's living and fighting out of New Zealand. But still, I think the point was made. A lot of the countries that are flourishing together, it's because of a momentum. You get a couple people in the gym, it gets contagious. Others see them on TV, and then next thing you know, you got yourself a fight team.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Let's switch here to the list of UFC fighters, all champions, and how many times they've been tested by USADA without issue. We're always looking at the bad stuff, like, oh, that allegations on this guy or gal. Oh, 2-year suspension on this guy or gal. Oh, rumors are, I'm hearing behind the scenes. I was in the gym today and they're saying this and that. Nope. This is good stuff here. These are fighters who are champions or were champions and are undefeated when it comes to them versus USADA. Conor McGregor, 49 samples he's turned in. Remember, USADA came aboard, what was it, June of 2015, 16? I think they're in their third year. Yeah, they're going to complete their third year. And now 11 of them were in that run-in against Floyd Mayweather. But either way, I still count them. It was a successful sample taken. 49 of those for Conor McGregor. He leads the way. Cormier is tested 45 times. He's 45-0. Rafael dos Anjos, kind of random, right? Not as big as the other two, but still, I guess, a former champion. 41-0. Holly Holm, 39-0. Stipe Music, also known as Stipe Miocic, 38-0. Robbie Lawler, 37-0. Amanda Nunes, 36-0. Jose Aldo, 36-0. Tyron Woodley, 35-0. Pretty cool, man. I mean, shout out to those guys and gals going out there performing, doing great things, and yet there has never even been so much as a blemish.
Those numbers are consistent for what they say as far as whether you agree with it or not, as far as testing fighters more the active they are. And if you look at that, outside of maybe Jose Aldo, who I think should maybe fall in the middle of the pack, I think that list goes from top to bottom, from most active to least active recently. So that's actually pretty consistent.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah.
Although I will say part of me does, and I totally agree, I don't want to take shine because we do focus on the negative and not enough of the positive, 100%. But on a comical note, that does remind me of kind of reminds me of that one of those Chris Rock sketches from Bring the Pain. I don't know if you remember that comedy special from the early mid-'90s, but he's like, I passed my drug test.
Yeah.
You're supposed to pass your drug test.
That's right. That's right. I forgot about that.
Old school, sorry about that.
I take care of my kids or something,
you're
right?
supposed to take care of your kids.
Yeah.
So good.
Nice pull there. All right. And, look at this real quick. McGregor, pretty chiseled. I mean, always in shape, always kind of ripped. It's not like you. So you got all different types of bodies. Dad bod with Cormier. Tyron Woodley, same thing. He's pretty well put together. Jose Aldo, pretty well put together. So all types of different body types, different weight classes. But again, man, I thought that was a pretty cool article. And too many times when you hit that refresh and read the news, you almost brace yourself for the bad that's coming. Yeah. And instead, that was a nice one. All right. Anthony Johnson, he's got a role with Bare-Knuckle Fighting Championships. He's kind of like a ambassador for them. But while he was out in New York and they had that media day, that's the day that Malignaggi and Artem Lobov got into it. Our Mike Bond got some minutes there with Anthony Johnson. To be fair, I think there was some other outlets as well, but he still has no itch to make a UFC return. Kind of a bummer because I really loved watching Anthony Johnson fight over the years. Still feel like he had the youth to get in there and do it. I mean, 35 years old, but, Cormier's 40. But he really just has no itch to do it. So, I mean, on the one hand, I'm bummed. On the other hand, I guess I'm happy for somebody that kind of went out on their own terms.
I mean, you know what? I'm with you as far as, like, I wish I would love to see Anthony Johnson fight again. I would love to see Nick and Nate fight again. I'm not, like, against these things, but let me ask you this, George, because I feel like, we've seen that a couple times from him, a couple statements over the years now, because he's been retired for about a couple of years now, and we've definitely seen our fair share of signs or statements, mostly signs and statements from the Diaz brothers, right, that they're probably not coming back, or at least anything worth us, meaningful to pay attention. So on the other hand, when all these fighters do the typical MMA thing, where we're like, oh, of course he's coming back out of retirement, of course Faber's coming back out of retirement, I feel like, and I'm not saying we do this, we obviously don't, and most media is pretty good about just being fair, balanced, and reporting, I would like to think. But us as a whole in MMA, I don't know if we can criticize MMA fighters for coming back out of retirement so much. For all the times we do this, and not just as media, because the fans do it just as much as media. This is not just about us. As far as, oh, I wish, why can't we see this guy fight? Oh, look what this guy posted, when they're clearly not fighting. Like, how many, like, I'm almost tuned off. And again, I'm a huge Nate Diaz fan. I'm a huge Rumble fan, but more applicable to Diaz than Rumble. But when Nate will quote something like, ah, Khabib, you're this, you're that. I don't really pay attention to it anymore, man. I mean, unless I'm seeing some real talk about contracts being signed, I don't want to keep bugging these guys for it.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I feel the same way. You just can't. The more they are further away from their last fight, the less serious you take them, and the more that they pile on the trash talk that goes nowhere, the more you just tune them out. You know, I mean, I would never consider them an unfollow per se, but do you ever become one of those people that when you're busy, you just read the headlines? You don't even read the text of the body.
Yeah,
same thing with Twitter. You just look at it, look at the name, and go, yeah. I mean, you haven't said anything valuable in your last 20 tweets, so someone's got to tell me, did you see what Nate did? No, I skipped it. No, I'll go back and look. Oh, okay, then I might go back and look and see if there's a video or whatever.
Right.
You just start skipping, But whatever. All right.
But by the way, did I tell you my fantasy fight though for Rumble Johnson?
Let's hear it.
It's super.
John
fantasy.
Jones at heavyweight?
No, it's not just him coming back. I had to get a time machine, and I'm gonna go back to the year 2000, 2001, and thank you. I'm gonna grab Igor Vovchanchin back from 2000, and then put him against.
You're not messing around.
And then I'm gonna grab Rumble Johnson from. He doesn't have to lose the weight because I'm gonna go and stop for the 2015 Rumble Johnson when he was making that title run toward the John Joneses of the world when he was on that Tyson-like run. That's my fantasy matchup there.
That's a good one. You would have if you gave me 100 guesses, I wouldn't have come up with that one. I like that one. Good stuff. All right, we'll touch a little bit of news towards the end of the show. Right now, we got to take an early break because we got two fighters coming back to back. One of them is Chris Lytle, who does the Bare-Knuckle Fighting Championship, although he's announcing at BKFC 5 this weekend. He's not fighting. He fought on the Cancun card. Of course, we all know him through his run in the UFC. Great guy. He's going to be announcing. We'll be talking to him about this card happening tomorrow, the pay-per-view. And then after that, Tatiana Suarez, UFC strawweight, undefeated, great prospect out of Southern California. Can't wait to talk to her. So don't touch that dial. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation, channel 156.
During the commercial break, they were probably talking smack about their next guest, but now they're going to act like they're all cool with him. Here they are, George and Goes.
Tonight at 10:30 Eastern, enjoy all the drama from the hardwood when the Golden State Warriors visit the Los Angeles Lakers on NBA Radio Series 207 XM86 and streaming on your phone and at home on Sirius XM connected devices and speakers. All right, our next guest, Chris Lytle, former UFC veteran. Good friend of the show. We've known him for a long time, covered him for a long time. He's not fighting. He did throw down in Cancun at BKFC 4. Now he's going to put on the announcer's hat. He'll be one of the announcers at BKFC 5, which takes place tomorrow night, straight from Biloxi, Mississippi, and it includes a main event of Artem Lobov versus Jason Knight. The one and only Chris Lytle joins us. What's up, Chris? Welcome back to MMA Junkie Radio.
What is happening? Thanks for letting me talk with you guys, man. Man, I love it. You guys always being nice to me, taking care of me like you were talking about. I love it.
Yeah, I don't believe that little rejoin there. We weren't talking about you. It'll be the next guest that we'll be talking about. Hey.
Oh, my bad.
Sorry. Chris, what a quality main event, right? Artem Lobov versus Jason Knight. I mean, both of these guys, I know them through MMA. Dan, my co-host, knows them through MMA. Same with you, but it's like they're a perfect fit for Bare-Knuckle.
Man, I tell you what, this card, I'm so excited for it. You should have been there today at the weigh-ins. Those guys were face-to-face, nose-to-nose. You know, you can tell Jason Knight feels very disrespected. Everybody's not even talking about him. All they're talking about is Lobov, you know, because him and, you know, Paulie Magliotti or whatever got in a little smack going on there. So everybody's not even talking about Knight. And Knight's like, I'm in my backyard. I'm a formidable opponent. This thing's on, you know. He's like, when you're spilling out blood, you know, you can say whatever you want, but you're going to lose this. I mean, they're all in each other's face. And there's about 4 or 5 fights like that where I'm just like, man, there's going to be some good fights. I'm super excited for tomorrow.
You know, I fell into that trap too. I mean, Malianaji and Artem, you know, slaps and kicks and talking trash. And, of course, we're all looking for how big of a fight that can be. But one thing MMA's taught me is you cannot predict what's going to happen in that sport. And I see Bare-Knuckle is very similar because of, in MMA, the 4-ounce gloves. In Bare-Knuckle, obviously, no gloves at all. Anything can happen if you connect, you know. And like I said, I mean, Jason Knight is no slouch. I mean, that guy, I think, was 20-2 at one point before he experienced a couple losses. But Artem's got his hands full.
Well, exactly, and I've talked to, you know, several of the guys here. I'm not going to name any names, but several of the people who are involved with the sport, and they're saying that they're predicting Knight to win. They're like, man, this dude is, you know, he's kind of butthurt. He's a little upset about how he's being treated, being looked over. He's coming to fight, man. I mean, it's not all rhetoric. It's all not just talk. This dude is going to come to fight. So I don't know. You know, like you said, you can tell they already have Plan B planned, but Plan A doesn't happen. It doesn't matter, you know, and that's the beauty of it. I mean, Lobov is a great opponent here. He's a great for this sport. You know, his style is perfect, but it doesn't matter if you lose. You know what I mean? So who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? I don't know, but I'm looking forward to watching.
Women's MMA is blown up. It's done very well with, you know, Cyborg, Ronda, Misha, a lot of the young ladies even now that are holding it down, Amanda Nunes. And over in WWE, WrestleMania is going to be headlined by 3 women, Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey, Charlotte. Is Bare-Knuckle, in the times that you've either shared a car with a female or just been around it, are the fans also embracing the ladies as well in that sport?
Absolutely. I mean, the first time I fought here, that was the main event. You know, I mean, it was, you know, Bret Hart versus Zach Rollins. So that was the main event. So the people are all about that, which is nice. You know, and last time I was there, co-main event, you know, Zach Rollins again. I mean, this time it's not one of the main events, but I mean one of the big fights. You know, Christine Forever, you know, a couple females fight versus Bret Hart again. I mean, they're very entertaining. They come to fight. You know, they got a different kind of something going on. I don't know what it is. Think about that. I mean, men fight, they fight that, but you got a woman who's fight. They got an extra different level of, you know, craziness or dysfunction going on than even us men, because we got some issues, but geez, they got even worse issues. But they're fighting. You know, I mean, I was being realistic here, but they just come and fight, man. It's they got a different kind of screw loose than I do, I think, too. I don't know.
This card has it all. We got some semifinals of some tournaments that are going down. We got heavyweights. We got lighter weights. We got females. It is stacked top to bottom. We're talking about Bare-Knuckle Fighting Championship 5, which takes place tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Go to www.bareknuckle.tv and order that pay-per-view. It's only $29, and I'm telling you, it's going to get bloody in there. We're talking to Chris Lytle, who will be announcing Bare-Knuckle Fighting Championship 5. Let me turn it over to Dan. Dan, what do you have for Chris Lytle?
Hey, Chris, I like how you mentioned that, Jason Knight's got a better shot than people are giving him credit to. Not a lot of people are talking about Jason Knight. I mean, the kid's got the dog in him, and he's going to have about a 6 to 6.5 inch reach advantage, which, is pretty useful and pretty notable. But let me ask you one thing, Chris. One of the things when I was looking at Jason Knight and kind of measuring up this match, and you tell me how important this falls, but obviously your hand health is important in bare-knuckle. But another area that I look at is how much a guy cuts. And, obviously with your own experiences, I mean, some of my favorite fights I wish they would have kept going, I believe, with you and Robbie Lawler. As a guy who cuts, is that something that you kind of look at when you're looking at a matchup, or you looked at yourself when you were getting into the bare-knuckle?
I mean, that's always a factor. I mean, you got to look at how much people are cutting and everything. But, I mean, I think that depends more. Important to that is how used to that they're doing. If they've been doing that for a long period of time and their body, it does adjust to it. I always tell people whenever we're trying to have somebody cut weight for the first time to do weight class, you have to do a practice run. Meaning if you're fighting in February, you're making it in January sometime, because the first time you make it, your body's never used to it. And then the second time, it's not as used to it. But the more and more you do it, the easier that gets for you, and your body adjusts to it. If you got a person who's been making this weight for a long period of time and they know how to do it, I don't think it's a factor as much anymore. But the first few times it's a huge factor. So I don't look at cutting weight as much depending on how long you do it. That's kind of my answer to that question.
Oh, I got you there, Chris. My bad on that, the way I referenced it. I meant like cut as far as getting cut as far as like the face, your bone structure, scar tissue, and all those factors. Jason Knight tends to get cut a lot in a lot of his fights, and I know that's something that you kind of would struggle with in your fights, even fights you were winning. It's just kind of a part of the game, obviously. I was just wondering what your opinion as far as a guy who has a more propensity to cut on the face, whether it be scar tissue and otherwise, and how that affects in the bare-knuckle arena.
Man, it seems like I remember one of the first times I did bare-knuckle here. After the fight, I had to go get I thought I was going to have to get a stitch. My fight lasted like a minute and a half. I didn't even think I got hit, but there was a little nick on the top of my head. Probably, like you said, just from being cut too many times. And I went back there, and the referee, the cut guy, was like, I don't even know if I have any more stitches. I only brought enough for like 10 people. I was like, 10 people? There's 22 fighters, and a lot of them have 3 cuts. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I didn't know to bring this much. My point is, I mean, people get cut a lot in this sport. So is that a factor? Absolutely. If you've been cut before, you're probably going to get cut here. The good thing about this is, it typically hasn't been to the place where people have to stop the fight because of a cut. People are getting cut little minor places here or there, but it hasn't been really in bad places, I think, because of the position, how people throw punches. You have to hit them right at the right spot over the brow to cut it right there. And people are doing a pretty good job of trying to stop that from happening, trying to use head move, and just making it more difficult to hit that person in that spot. So I haven't really seen too many fights that have had to be stopped because of that. I mean, people, are they going to get cut more often? Absolutely. And could it be a factor? Absolutely. But I haven't seen many stoppages because of it so far.
Chris, tell me about a fight that maybe nobody's talking to because we're so immersed with Malignaggi, Lobov, Knight, and then some of the names like Chris Lieben that everybody knows. Is there a fight down there that we should really keep an eye on?
Yeah, I tell you what, this is the one I've been really looking forward to. You got Johnny Bedford, UFC veteran.
Oh yeah.
Versus the Nightmare Valdez, Addy. I mean, man, those two guys do not like each other. The corners were arguing. Johnny Bedford was 0.3 of a pound over. The corners were yelling at each other. I'm telling you, anybody, there's the two fights going on in that 135-pound tournament. Even Reggie Barnett versus Rusty Crowder. I mean, those guys were in each other's face. This tournament, I mean, I just kept getting excited every time people weighed in. I was like, I couldn't believe it, man. I mean, me and Anthony Johnson were up there, and we're like, oh, man, I can't wait for this fight. Next guy to get up, we're like, I can't wait for this fight. I mean, we were legitimately excited for these fights, I mean, and this is like, me and Anthony Johnson are back there looking like, talking with Antonio Tarver. We're just like little kids back there, pointing and looking and laughing, like, man, I can't wait to see this stuff. So those at the 135-pound tournament are going to be two of the best fights you're going to watch. So that's what I'm really interested in seeing, those two fights.
Cannot wait, my man. Thanks for doing a quick preview of the card with us. We really appreciate it, Chris. Go out there and, like they say in show business, break a leg. We look forward to your call of the fights.
Thanks. I appreciate it, guys.
All right, we'll see you. All right, that's Chris Lytle. And let me catch up a little bit real fast on Twitter before we get to our next guest. Got a superstar waiting for us here. Randy Couture. I did mention his, right? I did, yeah. At Randy_Couture. Chris Lytle can be followed on Twitter at Chris Lytle LO, which is for Lights Out. And now we have our next guest, Tatiana Suarez. She's 7-0 overall, 4-0 in the UFC. Her Twitter handle is at TSPMMA115. She is a monster at 115 pounds. I mean, just wrecking shop. And more than anything, she's an awesome Twitter follow. For some reason, like, I have been laughing my ass off for like the last few weeks, especially on fight night. I think she goes from being a fighter to a fan, and she just kind of has similar reactions to, I think, how most fans are feeling. So again, I think she's definitely worth the follow. TSPMMA115. Joining us now is Tatiana Suarez. Hi, Tatiana. How are you? Welcome to MMAjunkie Radio. It's great to have you.
Hi. Thank you very much for having me on.
So I'm George. My co-host is Dan, and we've been anxious to talk to you. We've never had you on our show, but let me tell you something. We've been following. We've been paying attention. And I know what's coming. I can see it already, man. You have the skills to be a world champion. And I don't know if it's going to happen in late 2019 or 2020. But it's just a matter of time. You've been mowing through some of these ladies and some tough ones, too.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I'm very, like, how would you say it? Like, I'm very shy when it comes to stuff like that. So I'm just like, oh, okay, thanks.
I should have took it easy. I should have said, you're pretty good. You're just all right. No, but seriously, you just keep getting better and better. And, because, look, Amanda Cooper, Viviana Pereira, Alexa Grasso, Carlos Parza, they are all veterans, including one of them being a former world champion. And each time you keep getting better and better, and it seems like you haven't even hit your ceiling yet.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way, too. I just feel like, I'm fairly new to mixed martial arts. I have a wrestling background, but I think, the more I mix in, the ground and pound and the jiu-jitsu and the striking, I'm just gonna look a lot better out there, and it's gonna do, I think the struggle is just to put them all together, because that's the very difficult part about MMA, and that's what people don't really realize. Yeah, you can just do, like, you can take them down and just solely do jiu-jitsu and try to hold them down or whatever, which is a lot easier. But, like, once you start trying to, actually strike on the ground and do ground and pound, it's a lot harder to, to control somebody, because they're trying to get out, they're always moving, they're constantly moving. So I think I'm just trying to find the balance between the two, between the jiu-jitsu and the ground and pound as well. So, yeah, I definitely feel like, things are clicking, and I'm excited for my next fight. Like, I just want to see, what I can do. And my coach is like, oh, you just started camp and you already look good. Like, you look like you can fight tomorrow. And I was like, yeah, I know. I feel that way too. But, I still have a long camp ahead of me, so.
Yeah, roughly about 2 months, and I didn't even say anything about this yet. It's UFC 238, Cejudo versus Moraes, along with Shevchenko versus I, 2 title fights out in Chicago. In the featured bout, which is the third fight from the top, it will be Tatiana Suarez versus Nina Ansaroff. And Nina Ansaroff is also streaking, so great matchmaking here by the matchmakers in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, because they're positioning these ladies where, and I don't know if this is something you want to hear, Tatiana, where, it could result in a title shot. A lot of fighters don't even like to think about it or to think ahead, but it's our job to just forecast, and that's kind of how I see it. A lot of it will have to do with how impressive the winner looks and making sure that somebody else that's a contender also doesn't steal shine. You know how sometimes in the UFC is a little bit about timing, politics, injury. I don't know, but I'm really, really looking forward to this fight.
Yeah, me too. I believe that too. I believe this is that kind of fight, title contention fight. At first I was like, I was more about it, like, this is a fight, and then when people started advocating for themselves, I'm like, oh, no, back up, you know. But you know what, like, it is what it is. If I end up, you know, crushing this fight, which I feel like I'm going to, and you know, and I don't get the title shot next, it's just a matter of time, you know. I'm like, you know, why am I like, you know, I'm like sitting here like, oh, like this is it, like, you know, I'm next one, and like I don't want to be like, say it happens or something, and I'm disappointed because they give the shot to somebody else. I don't want to be disappointed, so I'm just gonna keep an open mind, and like if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And for me, like, I take every fight like it's, you know, a world title fight. I think of it that way. So, you know, I'm just going to focus on, you know, my fight ahead of me and the person ahead of me. And but yeah, but I agree with you, if that's what you're asking.
All right, cool. Tatiana Suarez, our guest here on MMAjunkie Radio. Dan Tom, our fight analyst, what do you have for Tatiana Suarez?
Tatiana, I love that attitude. I really do. And I think a telltale of that is kind of how you take compliments, which I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm super awkward at taking compliments myself. Maybe awkward's not the right word, but it doesn't feel great. And I think there's a good sign of character behind that. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. So props to that. But let me ask you on that note, you said, you know, you're still getting comfortable to that effect, but again, like what George said, I see you active on Twitter, and even, you know, going on your Instagram, it looks like you did one of those recent food truck diaries that Brendan Schaub does, and I know I got to go check that out now. How did that go? Are you getting more used to these media opportunities, so to speak?
Yeah, you know, I heard that he really wanted me on for, you know, a couple, like, actually, like, for months and months, almost a whole year, and, like, you know, he never messaged me, and, like, I had messaged him about, you know, comedy show. I thought he was like going to be in there, be doing a comedy show nearby, and I guess like the tickets were sold out, so I didn't end up going. But he ended up actually contacting me. People kept saying like, "Hey, Sean wants you on your food truck diary, or his food truck diary, blah blah blah." And I was like, "Oh, okay," you know. I was like, I didn't think anything of it, you know. And then he eventually asked, and then I was like, yeah, sure, like, I'd love to, you know. And then, you know, I did it, and then now I'm going to the show tonight, actually, his comedy show.
Very nice.
But to answer the question, yeah, I'm getting used to it. You know, I don't really like to talk about myself too much, so it's really weird, and that's why, like, when he was doing the interview, I was like, yeah, it's weird talking about myself. He's like, yeah, well, I'll kind of talk you up for your, you know, I'll talk you up for you, you know, and I'm like, okay, cool. But yeah, like, I'm not, you know, I'm just here, like, to do something I love and care about, and, like, I'm passionate about it, something, like, I truly feel like it's part of me. And, you know, yesterday it was really funny because, like, my coach was like, man, like, you were made for this, and I was like, you know what, I feel that way too, you know, like, I love it, and I feel like this is, I couldn't imagine my life any other way, like doing something else, you know. So, yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, your story alone makes people, including myself, and I'm not supposed to admit this because I'm media, makes people want to get behind you, Tatiana. And obviously, kind of like what George said, your style definitely is bringing a lot of supporters as well. But the most important thing about that equation, I think, is your attitude. I was going to actually ask you about staying grounded, and I would think that would be a biggest challenge for someone like you on paper when you look at the skills, the trajectory that you're on. But from your personality to your natural wiring, it's really impressive. So let me ask you more about the, you know, nuts and bolts of the game and the style. You kind of touched on it earlier, melding jiu-jitsu with wrestling. And you really stood out to me, and I'll admit I didn't watch the season Ultimate Fighter that closely, but on Tough 23 finale, your fight with Bobby Cooper and that Bravo choke that you caught. I mean, just kind of watching you chain from not just positions but 2 submissions is really impressive. I think that's where people get this Khabib comparison, but who's helping you work on your ground game? Is it a jiu-jitsu coach, a no-gi specialist, maybe even someone from catch wrestling? Who do you credit for working with you there?
I credit, you know, both of my coaches, Batiste Mansouri and Romeo Ram. They've been my coaches since the beginning. I've never changed, you know, coaches. And then, you know, also you too. I like go on there, you know, before practice, and I just kind of like look up stuff. And then, you know, I go and try it during practice, you know, and if it works, it works. it doesn't, then I try again the next day, and I do something. I try to, I always make a goal for myself, and I think, that's a very like important thing. I think whether it's any type of job, I think you should always go into your job like, hey, I'm going to do this, and then set this little goal for myself. If it doesn't happen, I'm going to try tomorrow, and I think that's the thing that I think is very important, and I strive to do all the time. I want to make those things happen. Like sometimes I'll be very uncomfortable or something like that because, at first, I wasn't very comfortable being in the pocket during practices and stuff like that. I'm a rangy fighter. I like to do lots and long slick kicks, and I like to, keep people at the end of my jab. And I realized, this is something that, this was, after the Ultimate Fighter show. This is something that, I'm not truly comfortable with, and I need to do a little bit better at, being uncomfortable and staying calm in those uncomfortable positions. And so I really worked on that. But, with the jiu-jitsu, I just really love it, and I'm very passionate about it, and I'm really, I like it because it feels just like chess, and it's the same thing with stand-up. I think the entire, that's why it's so addicting, mixed martial arts is so addicting because it's, a challenge all the time. So it's something that you're always challenging your mind, and you're challenging yourself every day. So, but, I think I wrestled so long that we're always on the ground, and I tend to go for chokes because in wrestling I did a lot of front headlocks, so it translated over very well to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. If your front headlocks, even sneaking in cradles in some of your transitions, which I don't think enough wrestlers or grapplers do. It's really beautiful. Just real quick follow up on that. Is there anybody, whether we're talking about the grappling or like you mentioned the striking, maybe like southpaw strikers? I'm pretty sure you're a southpaw. Is there any strikers, fighters, grapplers, anybody you watch for inspiration? Because you said YouTube and giggled, but really, we all need inspiration, and that's a great place.
Yeah, I watch a lot of fighters, and I watch a lot of old fighters, and I, in particular, I would say, I tend to watch a lot of fighters that, that are kind of similar to my game. But then also I watch fighters and I study fighters that aren't, close to my game. They're just strictly stand-up fighters, and I like to learn little things that they do and kind of watch little things. That's why I watch the fights. A lot of people don't watch MMA fights or something like that. That is weird. That is weird to me because, how are you ever going to, broaden your mind if you're just all it's just oh, I'm only going to do this, in practice, and I'm only going to learn from those people. I just don't think that's, that's limiting yourself in some type of way. So for me, I really enjoy that, and I get my inspiration for those people, and it really doesn't matter. I'll just look up, transition from this to this to this and this, and then if I find it, I find it. If I think, this sounds about right, I kind of know the game enough to know, this probably would work. I go off of that. And then, I've a lot of times, I've looked up Gracie stuff, and they have, little tiny tips, invisible.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, that a lot of people really, are oh, I tried to do this, but it didn't work. And you're yeah, because you're trying to muscle it instead of doing technique, So I like them because they really point out those little things, little tiny things that help, So
very cool.
Those are they're one.
Very cool. And I guess this last one from me, Tatiana, just so I don't sound like a complete homer, I kind of alluded to it earlier as far as your story, not just your skills. Obviously, you overcome cancer, beat up cancer, as you so aptly put it on your Instagram profile. And I just want to let you know that it is really super inspiring. You don't need someone like me to be saying this to you or to the listeners abroad. But just tell me, and maybe to the listeners, is there anything, speaking of speaking and whatnot, is there anything that you do as far as that community for motivation? Obviously, you just pursuing your goals right now is more than inspirational enough. I was just curious.
Yeah, I definitely work with a lot of organizations. I go to hospitals and stuff. I just don't post those things because I feel that's really weird. Oh, look at me, I'm doing all these great things. I don't know, it just sounds weird. It's giving the homeless person and then posting it on your Instagram. I gave $1 to a homeless man. But I don't know. I do a lot of stuff like that. I do a lot of volunteering. I do a lot of stuff for this has nothing to pertain to cancer, but I do feed the homeless and stuff like that, which I really love to do. And then But also, like, I donate to those societies, a lot of the cancer societies. And I worked with one before, and I really liked it because I could definitely, like, relate to them, obviously. But that was definitely, like, a time in my life that I was just, I wasn't, like, in the right state of mind. Like, I really don't, it was just a weird time for me because I had just, like, I couldn't wrestle anymore, and I was very devastated from not being able to wrestle anymore because I haven't wrestled since the age of 3. So I was really sad about that, and then, I had the cancer, and then I had to deal with that. So then at that time, I was, like, in a transition where I was just really trying to find myself and, like, who I was outside of wrestling and not a competitor. And it was really, really weird, and I was diagnosed with cancer, so I'm sitting there like, man, I had cancer too. This is just weird. So I'm going through this weird stage of trying to find myself, and then also, dealing with this cancer. So it was just a lot at one time.
Wow.
But, I definitely feel like for me, like, I just, like, want to support people. I know a lot of people reach out to me and tell me, that's the thing that I love the most is when people reach out to me and tell me that that I've inspired them or a loved one, and that really it really touches me because that's something that I really, really believe in. That I believe that, it sounds so weird, but I think, like, I feel like it was supposed to be part of my story, and to inspire people. Like, I was supposed to have cancer. I was supposed to, beat the cancer, and then I was supposed to get into MMA and inspire many other people and have a bigger platform to inspire other people. So, I don't know. I think that's something that I'm really happy about,
I got it all wrong. I described her as an amazing fighter. She's an amazing human being. I mean, that's really, really cool to hear. Your outlook on life. You were dealt a certain hand, and you overcame it. So, very, very impressive. Tatiana, thank you so much for the time you spent with us here on Junkie Radio. Hopefully, as we get closer to Chicago, maybe we can do one more, and we'll talk the X's and O's of you versus Nina Ansaroff. But at least we got to know you, talk to you, and way to rep SoCal. I'm also a SoCaler. I'm from the mean streets of Santa Ana, so about an hour south of Covina. But anyway, I was really, really stoked to have you on the show, so thanks for the time, and enjoy your Friday night. Enjoy the comedy show.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate you having me on, and that was awesome. I knew, like, I grew up with, like, so I used to wrestle a lot of kids from Santa Ana, which is really funny.
Oh, okay. Wow. All right.
They were really tough, too. They were really tough.
All right. Well, if you're ever in Vegas, come on in and co-host the show with us, all right?
Okay.
Okay. All right. Have a nice evening. All right. That's Tatiana Suarez. We're going to go to break, folks. Follow her on Twitter, at TSPMMA115. Let her know you heard her on the @MMAjunkie radio show. Really, really strong fighter at 115 pounds. Has that fight versus Nina Ansaroff coming up. All right, we got to go to break, and we'll be right back.
Blah, blah, blah. Here are those two dummies, George and Goes.
All right, let me get this out of the way. Let me thank all the guests for this week. Sadiq Youssef, Chris Kenny, Stitch Duran, Jason Knight, Paulie Malianaji, Artem Lobov, Randy Couture, Chris Lytle, and Tatiana Suarez. Again, shout out to all the producers that had Josh's back, made this week happen. Goes will be back on Monday. So will Dan Tom. We'll recap Bare-Knuckle Fighting Championship 5. Maybe a little bit of WrestleMania because I've already committed. I'm gonna watch it.
All
yeah.
right.
I'm gonna check it out just to eventually get to Becky Lynch and Charlotte and Ronda or whatever. Remember I drove down with Goes to catch Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
So it's like a little bit of that just carried over. Not that I've been watching it. I'll just fast forward through a little bit of Raw, but I catch the guys on Busted Open. Again, shout out to those guys. 10-year anniversary party tomorrow in Manhattan. Cobb, you know the details again of where that's taking place, and people can go and check it out?
Yes, it will be taking place at Habanero Blues.
That's right.
On 36th Street. I have to double check that.
It's like 5 blocks from Madison Square Garden, so it's not that far at all.
Not far at all. So about 1 to 5 p.m. Eastern time. It should be a big blast. A lot of great guests set up, so it should be a good time.
Yeah, they do have some guests showing up, and in addition to the team there with Dave and Bully and Mark Henry and all that. So again, congratulations to those guys. Are you watching WrestleMania on Sunday?
I'll probably watch some of it, but not the full event. No, I'll probably watch.
Not
I'll
all
definitely
16
watch the main
matches.
Event. Yeah, I'm good there. I mean, it's hard enough. I don't even like when MMA has 16 matches. So yeah, I'll probably catch the last couple.
How about you, Dan?
I'm probably not gonna. It'll probably be on my Twitter timeline because every Sunday I turn on Twitter and I'm like, oh, no MMA cards usually this day. What does the MMA world do when they're not at work Monday through Friday? There's not a fight card Saturday, and I learned it's the wild card day. It's wrestling, it's random Japanese stuff, it's award shows or whatever, Emmy award shows.
Life.
It's random. It's life. Yeah, I'm like, oh, this is life outside. So I just watch as the proverbial spectator, and I scroll my feed on those days.
What about the Bare-Knuckle? Are you gonna order?
Oh, I'll be checking that out for sure. Yeah, I think I'll come clean. I think I've only ordered 2 of their events thus far.
Yeah.
I think the very first one and the second to last one.
How about you, King of Banter? Has Bare-Knuckle been your jam at all?
Yeah, I watched the first one, and I forget what the other one was. I don't think it was the second one. It might have been the third one. But yeah, I'm entertained by it. I thought it was really fun. Oh,
very cool. All right. Well, we look forward to talking about all that on Monday. We'll be back in full force, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. What else you guys got going on this weekend? On a non-MMA and non-boxing weekend.
Not too
weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it is weird. I mean, I kind of did my enjoyment last week, and I'm gonna be getting ahead. To be honest, I'll be doing some low key work, but enjoying the weekend. And I will say, my Fight Vault wax should be hitting on Saturday. Top 5 rematches to help prime us.
Oh, that's right. That's right. It drops tomorrow.
Yep, it'll be dropped.
Filmed earlier this week.
That's right.
Okay. How about you, Cobb? Any plans?
Busted Open party tomorrow, of course.
Oh, you said that. That's right.
Yep. And then Sunday I have some errands to run. I'm actually going to a destination wedding next weekend in the Bahamas, so I got to get some stuff together.
Yeah.
Now, what's the difference between going to a destination wedding and a wedding? What does that mean?
The destination wedding costs you a lot more is generally what it means because you have to fly out.
That's what you meant. Just the farther. Yeah. Okay, I got you. So it's not like you're driving to it. I see.
It's going to be King of Bahamas that weekend?
I wish. But yeah, it'll be in the Bahamas, yeah.
King of Bahamas?
So not a bad way to go.
Yeah, it is.
What's
not.
That?
Who is that?
The King of Bahamas. That's what's going to change his nickname to, right?
Who's getting married?
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Tim Duncan?
Yeah, I wish. No, 2 friends of mine, actually. So it should be an interesting wedding.
Hey, Tim Duncan would get married out there because he does travel a lot.
Tim Duncan? Yeah. Oh, look at you. Yeah.
They used to have it on like the TNT, like when they would play Ring the Gong, get it on, and they would like show Tim Duncan because it was like his rookie
year. Was he a traveler?
But like even in the replays, they would show us highlights. I'm like, dude, this guy travels so much. Can you at least like not put his traveling in the replay? You're doing Tim Duncan a disservice.
That's funny. I didn't catch where you were headed with that one.
Yeah, you know me in the '90s basketball references.
Yeah, but take nothing away. He's still one of the best number 4s out there, right? Ever.
Yeah, number
Along
4.
With, like Karl Malone and Kevin Garnett. Well, Kevin Garnett I think was more of a small forward, but
yeah, forward. Yeah.
Some might argue that he's the best power forward ever. But 5 titles and
yeah, you can't argue that. Yeah,
a lot of consistency.
That's right.
Yeah. Listen, it's been a fun week here on the MMAjunkie Radio Show, and again, shout out to the guys at Bare-Knuckle Fighting Championship. Made a lot of their athletes available. So it's now time to just enjoy the weekend. I'm already having a jump start. This is a Gozy drink that I'm having here. Salud again.
Sir, salud.
And last sip there. Them waitresses have no mercy, man. I think they do triples or doubles or something like that. But yeah, I'm gonna do the Bare-Knuckle. So I'll be kind of like live tweeting, I guess, for that and WrestleMania. Just kind of hanging back. Got to give my dog a couple long walks.
Yeah.
During the week, we do shorter walks on the weekend. It's starting to get warmer, so I got to wake up earlier because his little paws get burnt.
So I did yard work all this week, man. I was taking advantage of that weather. I was just knocking out all my yard work this week.
Yeah, I got to do that
before the summer comes.
30. All right, there's the music. All right, so we're out of here. Enjoy the combat sports that's available also on the SiriusXM app. All 5 shows on Fight Nation 156 are there. Luke Thomas Show, MMA Junkie Radio, At the Fights, Busted Open, MMA Tonight. And we'll see you all on Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, with another edition of MMA Junkie Radio. For the King of Banter and Dan, I'm George. Have a nice weekend.
5,
Go out there
4,
and be a champion.
3,